I'm going to really just facilitate a conversation with our panelists. We have got SusanJoseph from the E3I North American representative. We've got GaryFinke, business intelligence from Travelers. JosephRapisarda, is that right? Who's coming from UConn, one of the blockchain entrepreneurs, and Chris Chandler from Finke. Great. All right. So the first thing I'd actually like to do, first question is, if you could all just quickly talk about. I guess Chris, you've been sort of preempted, but if everyone could talk a little bit about the blockchain work that they are doing right now. So what blockchain project are you focusing on? As much as you can tell us, but quickly, just 2 minutes each, so that we get an idea of where really everyone is working. And Chris, if you want to kind of jump on Sujeesh's talk and start us off.
Sure. So I'm the CTO and founder of Finke, in case you're wondering. Sujeesh said I should come and do the panel as a bit of practice. So here I am, having some practice. Sujeesh gave a pretty good rundown of the AmiStamp project. So were there any questions about that, by the way? Everybody got the idea? It's irrefutable information. And I would dispute some of the earlier presentations very slightly. I would say if there's one thing that makes blockchain important to any potential project, it's when you have a need for irrefutable information, because that's, as a technologist, this is about the first time that's been possible in computer science. So that's what it brings that's unique. So when you're thinking about projects, that's where you should be thinking. And if you don't have a need to have incontestable information, whether it's a database record or a file or whatever it might be, then blockchain may not be very useful to it. Moving on to the AmiShare project, and really enhancing that story, Sujeesh gave you a quick rundown on how it distributes information around the network to protect it by breaking it up into encrypted fragments. One of the other things it does, which is also very important, is it tracks with an auditing system exactly who has access at what point to exactly which version of that particular file or whatever it might be at that time. So a very, very detailed audit trail. And as you can imagine, we use the blockchain system there to make that audit trail irrefutable. So now, for example, if a CEO decides to tell an IT guy to go and change a record in a database or change a file somewhere, well, with this system that's not possible because you can't fix the auditing trail.
Right.
So that's a good example of why we use it.
Thank you, Chris.
Joe. Yeah, so I'm working with a group of 3 UConn students right now on a project that we're calling FitTrek. So I'd like to just step back to that first presentation we had, just talking about how the blockchain, I view the blockchain as an extension of the internet, right? So what we're really trying to do as students at UConn is just explore this new technology and then find the most easiest MVPs that we can implement for business solutions and do that. So with FitTrek, what we think we've done is found a new or easier way to secure data for a user. So we believe we have a data management tool, and we all have a passion in fitness and health. So what we're really trying to do is allow a user to track and record their gym and health data, all their gym metrics, their heart rates, their workouts, they actually attended the gym, secure that data on a non-fungible token, and then provide data, allow data visibility to third parties such as businesses or insurers. So what we're really trying to do for the insurers out there is provide more valuable data to you in real time in what we think is a more efficient way than we've had in the past. And we're trying to expand off that. But that's where we are. It's a starting point.
Thanks, Joe. Susan.
Hi. Great to see all of you out here. Just to be clear, I am not with B3I. I'm recently with B3I, so I can speak to what reinsurance is doing, and in fact, a lot of you are probably testing what B3I is doing, so kudos, you can let us know how that goes. But I also have independent consulting, which is what I do as well. So some of the things that I'm working on, quite simply, death registry, and when I was asked by, most recently, working with states to do this, because this is really, I have tried this for a few years with insurers, and it really belongs with the states. This is a state record. So, but when I am asked what I am doing and why, what is this? My simple answer is nobody wants to pay a dead person benefits. So that's pretty much the business case, and it applies to I started off with life insurance and certainly long-term care, but any asset manager, any financial institution, any state that's paying out benefits, etc. So it has a lot of value on the registry side. Other things that I'm working on-demand insurance concepts, which were kind of what were described. I can't speak to exactly what those are, but similar in nature to what you might have seen with InsurWave and those kinds of issues that when put up the marine hull insurance. Also, coordination of benefits is something that we are looking at. And something different, which I haven't heard, which would be digital asset insurance and key management, custody issues, and all of the things that go along with those as the new products are coming along on the digital asset side. Insurers are not immune to this. You must have probably heard about the Ohio case where the person lost some Bitcoin, claimed that he wanted damages under his homeowners, was offered $200, took it to court, was given $16,000 because it was considered property. So whether insurers like it or not, they are involved in crypto, and the kinds of things are going to pop up. So that's a quick rundown.
Hi everyone, I'm Gary Finke. I lead a data engineering team at Travelers where we build predictive models. That's my primary job, so why am I up here? So last year I had the opportunity to do an internal and external market scan within the company to determine what use cases make sense for us, as well as build a business case for a potential use case that we'd want to bring into our innovation lab at Travelers.
Thank you. So the first question, and Gary, why don't you start with this one, is what's going to take an insurance industry use case and move it out of the pilot phase into real production? Right? What's required to make it not just a pilot, right? Like, what does that even mean?
Yep, no, it's a great question. I agree with Jerry, the point you made earlier, where it's going to take somebody who has a large market share and put that use case out in the market. But in order for that to happen, there's a few things, obviously, being a large carrier, that you have to work through. One is this education and understanding. What is blockchain? Obviously, there's a lot of folks here today just understanding what that is, right? And some of you guys have a deeper knowledge of it, and you're trying to share that with others in your particular community. The second thing is getting that internal buy-in and being able to do those innovations so that you can show, here's what it could be, so that you can bring it from pilot to the marketplace, and proving or disproving that it's gonna work. And more focus on distributed ledger technology than blockchain itself. And then the third piece is understanding the legal and regulatory aspects of distributed ledger technology. There are states right now that are putting rules into place and making in law around blockchain, so we have to be very wary of what they're putting in and are they going to impact potential use cases in the future. So it's the normal, you got to get it out there, you got to test the waters, and eventually you're going to get through all that red tape to get that use case out there.
You want? Okay, so
Anyone else now?
from my experience, I spent a couple of years inside a carrier running their global blockchain working group, and we did a number of MVPs across international borders, across the asset management side and the risk management side. And I would say that the hardest thing that I saw was initially I was handed a group of technologists, and not to put anything down for technologists, this is a technology, but what you're solving is a business problem. So in my prior life, I worked with a technology distributor for many, many years, and I never ever saw the technologist buy the technology. It's always the business person. So I think where you need to get to is business buy-in on what kind of revenue products you can bring to the table. And when you do that, then you can embrace the rest of this. But it is really hard to make that leap from the innovation side up to product management. It needs to go the other way.
I'd just like to echo that a little bit and maybe expand. I think it's really about pain. You've got to find the business case that Susan's talking about has got to be, it's got to be a demonstrable, thorn in someone's side, where you have somebody who's in a strong position, who's already doing pretty well and making a lot of money, but realizes that in the not too distant future, their business is going to suffer or may already be suffering unless they do something different. And so I think, part of it is that there has to be, that's how you get the buy-in from the business person. Either they can see, some cost saving or a new opportunity or whatever it might be. I think the other half of it is also just the fact you have to recognize that IT is really, really complicated these days. There's a patchwork of systems that have been sort of deployed from the last 50 odd years. I mean, we still have IBM mainframes out there. And there's the IT guys are understaffed, underpaid, and they complain about it all the time. So, in order for this to be, in order for you to actually accept that when you're trying to, let's say you're a startup like us, you're trying to get into this environment, you've got to realize that the last thing you want to do is to try and provide a pilot that's going to change their business, where they're going to have to throw out everything they've already got. Nobody throws anything away. There's always, it lasts a very, very long time. So I think the other thing you have to worry about when you're building a pilot that you really want to take into a full product, a full release, is that you've got to find a way to let the kind of group, the various stakeholders, the business people, the IT groups and so on, dip their toes in. They've got to have an opportunity you've got to be able to extend the system to demonstrate the value of thing while not breaking whatever's in place, so that if it doesn't work or they don't like it, they can unplug it. If you go in there and tell them we're going to change everything and it's going to be great, they're just going to say, really?
Jeff, I'll only take 30 more seconds here on this one. Allow college students like myself to break things. That's one thing that I've found useful so far, is that we're in a low-risk environment right now at the university where we can play, we can create a prototype of something and then use each other to do these mock simulations of an actual business environment. So creating environments like this at Upward Hartford is great, but also getting involved in the community. So attending conferences like you are tonight, learning about other projects that are going on, and then having your innovation teams reaching out and expanding on what's already been created.
Thank you. All right. So there's a lot of consortiums or working groups in the industry around blockchain. You've got the Risk Block Alliance, you've got B3I. So who's going to introduce one of these real production blockchain use cases first? Is it going to come from a working group or a consortium, or is it going to come from an individual player who really puts something out there and then other people start participating in? And Susan, since you work with B3I, I would like you to start with that one.
Well, obviously B3I would like to believe that they are going to have the first deployed product. I think it's a combination, and I don't necessarily think it matters which is first. It matters what's most useful. Yes, it matters that we can show that the technology is real and gives a real result, and that people can use it without fear and without breaking their heads around it, because I'll tell you that one of the first, everybody on this panel must get the question, well, what resource do I need to actually do this? Now when you're talking about something practical. So I think, if you don't mind, I sort of reframe that question to be like, how do I get involved with this if there are so many choices and different things? And earlier there was a comment about hedging your bets. And I hate to say it, but I really think that it's not something a business person wants to hear. They want to deploy one solution. They want to justify to management one thing. And that's just not where you are in innovation. And it's also not where you are with foresight. So there are going to be a lot of different things that do different things, and while you may not be able to afford to be in anything, picking one thing is probably not the best route. It's better than no route, but it's probably not the best route.
So I'm not sure if it'll come from a consortia or a group of partners working together, but I do feel it may come from a commoditized process. So what do I mean by that? So there are a lot of insurance processes that are very archaic by nature, paper processes. I think you had the proof of insurance example before, or certificate of insurance process, right? And if you think about that, that's painful for the insurer, that's painful for the agent, that's painful for the customer, and it's also painful for, if you think about contractors on a job site, being able to maintain all of those things. So I think it's going to be one of those types of use cases where it's a commodity and we can almost get rid of it for the industry.
So I'm going to take a different approach. I think it may actually come from more of a lean startup. So one of the issues you're seeing right now with larger organizations is your cost structure, right? It's very expensive to operate the business. But if you look at past platform models that have come from the internet, the Ubers, the Airbnbs, right? There's been a lean startup to it where they've been able to implement a technology that was more cost efficient at the time and not be able to have as much manpower to actually get a product out there. With that being said, I do fully understand that the insurance industry carries a very high amount of regulatory risk, which will definitely benefit you, but we're talking about a technology here where one day we could potentially see peer-to-peer protocols, peer-to-peer insurance, or an autonomous organization that's actually running one of these smart contracts that allows my neighborhood to pay into something that then pays us out a certain amount of risk if an accident occurs. So I'll take the other side, and I think it's actually going to come from more of a lean startup in this sense.
So I'm going to take the technologist's answer to this one, because that's what I know. I actually don't think you can tell whether it's going to be a consortium or a individual company, because I really think that's the wrong question to ask. The question is, what is the problem that's being solved, and does it require, who needs the information, who needs the verification? If you use a private blockchain or something like that to establish a consortium, the reason why you're using a private blockchain is to deal with this problem of the fact that the groups in the consortium don't really trust each other completely, and the blockchain is providing a mechanism so that we can all agree that the information is real. Now, that's just one model. You could just as easily have a company that's starting up to build some product, or it doesn't have to be a startup, but an established company that's building some product, where it's decided that it's a useful facility to have information that is just, replicated information that's distributed efficiently around the network for some reason. One of the attributes of blockchain is it distributes copies of the information around. So that might be useful. So in which case it could all be, you could have one company that's running nodes at its various sites, and now you've got a single blockchain used internally and nobody else is actually using it. A third reason is you might actually use it for internal controls inside that company. One of the nice things about one of the risks of a central database server is that the system administrator can accidentally or maliciously damage it. Well, if you're using a blockchain for some of this critical information, then it's a lot harder for either a system administrator or a malicious hacker who's broken in to actually go and do that. They can't go and change the information in the blockchain database. So there's a lot of, that really depends on the problem you're trying to solve, whether or not you have a consortium or a single company doing it.
Thank you.
I would add to that, because I think this is actually a really good discussion. If you look at the product that you put up there that you've said is no longer in existence, the flight delay insurance, that came from a very inventive startup.
And they're still around.
And they're still around. They're doing crop insurance. They're trying to do hurricane insurance. They've got other products. That's a start. That's the example of a startup coming up with a new product, and they didn't need to build a network per se. They needed to distribute that product individually. So that was more of a peer-to-peer product. As opposed to when the insurance industry is trying to solve proof of insurance, that is a networked solution. And in that instance, the consortia or network or MOU or however you're going to look at it, that fits within antitrust regulations and other regulatory concerns. A lot of times, consortia are going to be driven because of those regulatory concerns. And so I think that it literally does depend on what you're doing. What type of product there? And you'll see many. Exactly.
What is the problem you're trying to protect?
Exactly.
Right. Thank you. Before I ask the next question, do we have any questions from the audience? Anybody? No? All right. Okay. I'm going to my next question. You can jump in and I'll pull you up. Okay. We started talking about this, I think, in the last one, but I actually want to dig into a little bit deeper, right? I think when an emerging technology comes up, insurers, like 90% of the time, 90% of where they try to apply it is pricing and risk, right? Because that's what the insurance industry does. Can we do better rating? Can we do better risk decision making? Do we see what parts of the insurance value chain, do we see it being the risk and pricing part of the value chain, or do we see it being ancillary parts of the value chain, or non-risk parts of the value chain that are really going to change in the insurance industry?
So I think I'm answering your question, but I think the two use cases maybe I'm excited about, so I'm claim background, right? So I'm going to go there. One is medical records. So a lot of the work that we're doing in claim is fighting medical and provider fraud. And I'm excited if we were able to get our medical records on a blockchain and have that pure, like who actually did the procedure versus who did they put on the bill, could prevent a lot of medical fraud that's occurring within the industry. And that's something a lot of insurers can rally around because we're already participating on the National Insurance Crime Bureau and ICB, where this is something that the insurers do work together on. The second one is more government related, and I think we were talking a little bit about before, I think Jeff, you mentioned it, on processes that we get rid of paper. So the example I'll use is our auto title records. So today, again, auto titles within the states, a lot of times you have to sign it, return it, and we're waiting days, weeks. So in an auto salvage situation, and we're paying for those rental costs until we get the title back. If we had the auto titles on a blockchain, you can imagine how instant that could be to transfer the title from the insured to the insurer and then be able to not have to have those rental costs. And there's, multi-million-dollar benefit right there.
So I think it's a combination of both. I mean, I know pretty well the subrogation case that's going on regarding State Farm, which has made that public, and the other insurer, which has not. And that's a really interesting netting solution. So you now are getting closer to claims, and I think it's nice that the insurance, and it's great that the insurance industry is trying to clean up internal processes on the front end. But really, when you go to renew your policy, it's based a lot, I think, I would argue, on how you're treated in your claims process. And if you have a bad claims process with an insurer, you can bet somebody's going to be shopping for different insurance, right? That's your storefront. So I haven't seen a lot of reform on that, but to me that would be the most exciting part, is that. And I know that there is something going on kind of related, so it's a little bit external to this, but it would be blockchain used to deal with referrals, physician referrals. And that, I know, was being done in a Medicaid situation, and the state of Delaware was looking at that. And there was ample opportunity to get rid of fraud and get rid of time spent and to provide better service to customers. So those sorts of things will come. I mean, you've got an ancillary product, so you get to you can weigh in on that.
That probably took me towards a path I'd like to talk about after this, but I'm going to keep the mic going just because I'm not fully exposed to the insurance industry, but if I had to actually bring up one point, I'd say time to settlement and transactions maybe, right? If you don't have to go through a third-party intermediary and you can pay the claim out directly to the consumer in seconds at less transaction fees that are cents, if not less than a penny, that's pretty powerful.
So I would say that the two areas that blockchain can really help, I mean, we've heard it already, there's claims and prevention of fraud. Imagine how nice it would be as if if you're trying to fill in a claim if something goes wrong, and all you have to do is take a picture on your phone, you press a button or something, and now it's recorded the serial number of whatever it was that's been damaged, and then the insurance company can now check whether or not that thing's already been claimed once before and decide whether or not to pay you. So you can imagine the resolution of those claims if that checking that has to go through to verify the information is correct could be much, much quicker if it's all accessible in some more electronic form. And blockchain would be a way to enforce the integrity of that information. The second area I also wonder about, and this may show my ignorance about the insurance industry, but parts of it involve negotiations between different parties, especially things like reinsurance. I wonder whether there's an opportunity to make that more efficient by making it easier for both sides who don't really trust each other as much as they might like to verify the information they're looking at as part of this negotiation is actually accurate. So, I send an email to someone at the other end gets it. Do they really know that the email I've sent is the same as what they're looking at, is a question. And so if there's anything that can be done there to improve efficiency and drive down the price of premiums and so on, that might be a longer term opportunity as well.
Thank you. And I think that a lot of these use cases we just talked about are benefiting the insurer, right? Preventing fraud, I mean, it ancillarily benefits the insured because it drives down prices, but the person who you prevented from submitting a fraudulent claim, they're not happy with you. Right, is there an opportunity for blockchain to really change the insured's policyholder perception of the insurance companies and make, we're talking from an experience side, from a price side, how does blockchain actually, the insurance industry doesn't always have the best reputation. People don't like insurance, right? That's not really our fault. It's kind of a negative value product. So how does blockchain help fix that?
So I'll just give you what we're trying to do at FitTrek right now, or at least what we're exploring with token economics is, for us, it's just expanding your wellness networks, right? So if you as an insurer are saying to your policyholders, we'll let you get 30% off to go to Gold's Gym down the street, and we're only doing that because we don't have this software that allows us to expand our network. Well, for us, it's actually allowing the user to carry on their cell phone a digital asset that's unique to them, where they can actually scan and track where they've gone, what facilities they've gone to, what their workouts are, what their heart rate is, and provide that data back to you to prove to you that they're actually working out. Because myself, I come from a corporate background with United Technologies, and I love the corporate gym, but I also attended a CrossFit gym outside of that because I just like that better. So that's probably a use case I'd see as expansion of benefits to the policyholder.
Right, you're essentially broadening. It's not just insurance. It's actually building more of a relationship with them through this kind of tech.
Yeah.
Great.
So something that we tested in one of the companies that I work for, which could be perceived as a benefit for a policyholder, was a way to, and this was done in Europe, was a way to pledge insurance as an asset when you're going for a mortgage. And setting up a network among agents and brokers and real estate partners, clearly nobody trusting each other, to try and see if you could do that and then allow somebody to become a homeowner where they couldn't have before. And so that would be a consumer benefit, is another way to sort of tokenize and create these assets in a really interesting way that's secure with the parties that didn't transact before for the benefit of the consumer.
That's great.
Yeah, I'll build on your comment on, I think anywhere, I used the commoditized processes before and the old paper process. Anywhere we can use distributed ledger to digitize our processes and make that transaction easier for the customer is obviously one area where we'll be able to hopefully get rid of that negative connotation with insurance. And I think the ones we talked about before and speeding up that claims process, if we're able to do that, we're able to obviously increase that customer experience. So anywhere from a digital or operations standpoint.
Right. And I think a lot of InsurTech carriers that you see popping up are, they're not necessarily using blockchain for it, but definitely those are the kind of problems they're trying to fix, often on the consumer experience end. And it's not necessarily that we need blockchain to do it, but if we can use blockchain to do it, yeah, I would agree. Okay. Yeah, Chris, you want the last word?
I don't really have much to add because I think you just took it. But yeah, it's optimizing. No one's ever going to love insurance. I'm sorry, guys and girls. You're never going to be the most popular person in the room. But anything that you can do to simplify the experience, make it easier, avoid unfortunate errors, avoid those annoying phone calls when something's gone wrong and you've got meaningless information coming back at you and you don't know how to respond. Anything that kind of reduces, just expedites the process, I think is, with accurate information along the way, so there's no opportunity for fraud. I think that's the way forward.
Great, thank you so much. I think we're out of time, so thank you so much, panelists. That was terrific.